Hello and welcome, ISWA Learning Coaches. Thank you once again for supporting your student this year here at Insight School of Washington, or ISWA. Today I'm going to be covering our late policy. Insight School of Washington is a Washington State public high school, and we do have an attendance and a late policy here. So here's an overview of ISWA's late policy. Students have assignments that they'll need to be turning in to their teachers. Each assignment has a due date. This is listed in the course plan in the online high school, and there is also a deadline date. This can be found in class calendars or class announcements, so going into the individual class to check for deadlines is how the students can look up a deadline date. So students are expected to submit all assignments by their due date. So if the due date is this Friday, that is when they are expected to turn in an assignment. There is no penalty for submitting an assignment prior to the deadline. So if a student happens to miss the due date, let's say it was Friday and they wake up on Monday and they're like, oh no, I forgot to do my assignment. As long as they get it in before the deadline, there is no penalty. Most deadlines are about 10 days after, but it can vary from class to class. So please have your student ask their teachers when their deadline is. So between the due date and the deadline, there is what we call a grace period. There's no penalty to get an assignment in. We know that life happens. We know students get it busy and they can turn in assignments. But right around 10 days after, so these are 10 days, not just 10 school days, 10 full days after an assignment is due, assignments are still can still be submitted. However, students can only earn a maximum of 60 points in that class. So if they turn in an assignment, they forgot the deadline or they forgot the due date and then completely forgot about it, and it's been 2 weeks since the due date. They turn in their assignment, they actually worked really hard on the assignment, and they get 10 out of 10. The most that the teacher can give them is a 60% on that assignment. So it is important for students to get their assignments in, preferably by the due date, but we know life happens, but before the deadline date. So they can check to see if they've completed an assignment, whether by checking to see if there's a check next to the assignment. So you can see an assignment here. This is Unit 1 Assessment. It was due June 30th at 2:30 a.m. That means the student needs to get it done before June 30th at 2:30 a.m. And you can see the student has completed this because there is a check mark next to it. So here's kind of the due date policy broken down, our late policy broken down. So they'll have their first assignment. They can see the assignment is due on September 6th at 11:59. Turn it in by this date for full credit. They can check the deadline. If they do not get their assignment in by the deadline, they get an automatic 40% taken off. So between the due date here and the deadline, they can still turn in their assignment for full credit. However, after the deadline, they'll get an automatic 40% taken off their assignment. If you have questions about this or want to know when specifically deadline dates are, contact the teacher of that class. So if your student has 4 classes, that means 4 different teachers, possibly 4 different deadline schedules. Please contact the teacher. You'll be able to talk to them about the course plan, and they can point you in the direction of where you can find all the due dates and deadlines listed. So that's an overview of ISWA's late policy. If you have any further questions, contact the individual teachers in the class.